Hey everyone, it's me, Garrett. Just want to give you a heads up that this episode contains quite a bit of harsh language. That might not be for everyone, so take care when listening. Like, for instance, right now.
I want the fucking money. I will play the goddamn game and I'll win. Because I want the money. Because I want to extend my influence. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. He wants the money.
It's November 10th, 2017. Chamath Palihapitiya, a tech billionaire and former Facebook executive, is giving a Q&A at Stanford's Graduate School of Business. It's one of those extremely frank talks that seems destined to go viral.
Consumer internet businesses are about exploiting psychology. We want to psychologically figure out how to manipulate you as fast as possible and then give you back that dopamine hit. We did that brilliantly at Facebook. Instagram has done it. WhatsApp has done it. You don't realize it, but you are being programmed. And don't think, oh yeah, not me. I'm fucking genius. I'm at Stanford. You're probably the most likely to fucking fall for it.
It's been a little over a month since Facebook revealed that a Russian troll farm had used its platform to stoke division in America and influence an election. And as Palihapitiya jokes about Facebook manipulating people's minds, a genocide is being carried out in Myanmar, fueled in part by hate speech and fake news on the platform. Palihapitiya, who got rich overseeing Facebook's growth, says there's not much he can do now.
I don't have a good solution. My solution is I just don't use these tools anymore. I can control my decisions, which is I don't use this shit. I can control my kids' decisions, which is they're not allowed to use this shit.
I want to bring us back to the point that you were making about exploiting consumer behavior. You said that this is a time for soul searching in social media businesses, and you were part of building the largest one. What soul searching are you doing right now on that?
I feel tremendous guilt. I think we all knew in the back of our minds something bad could happen. But I think the way we defined it was not like this. It literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. It is eroding the core foundations of how people behave by and between each other. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth.
Hoax sites and hyper-partisan blogs generated more engagement than real news sites.
Bad actors can now manipulate large swaths of people to do anything you want.
Trump supporters helped the Russian internet trolls infiltrate U.S. communities, spreading Russian-made messages.
We're in a really bad state of affairs right now, in my opinion. If you feed the beast, that beast will destroy you.
Our witness today is Mark Zuckerberg, founder, chairman, chief executive officer of Facebook.
It's a few months after Palihapitiya's interview, April 10th, 2018. Mark Zuckerberg has been called to testify before a joint meeting of the Senate Commerce and Judiciary Committees. Revelations about the dual catastrophes of the genocide in Myanmar and Russian interference in the 2016 election are still unfolding. And Zuckerberg has been on an apology tour.
We didn't take a broad enough view of our responsibility, and that was a big mistake. And it was my mistake, and I'm sorry.
While much of the world has woken up to the damage social media platforms can cause, some in the U.S. government still don't seem to understand how they work.
How do you sustain a business model in which users don't pay for your service?
Senator, we run ads.
I see.
Amid soaring profits, the tech industry has had a long leash in Washington. But this hearing is part of a long overdue reckoning, and Zuckerberg seems to have changed his tune. Back in 2016, he said that the idea that fake news on Facebook had influenced the election was, quote, pretty crazy. Shortly after Donald Trump's election, then-President Barack Obama pulled Zuckerberg aside to warn him. Unless Facebook starts to take disinformation and fake news seriously, it's only going to get worse.
What I think we've learned now across a number of issues, not just data privacy, but also fake news and foreign interference in elections, is that we need to take a more proactive role and a broader view of our responsibility. It's not enough to just build tools. We need to make sure that they're used for good.
Zuckerberg seemed to finally grasp the seriousness of the situation. He would create and fund an independent oversight board that would handle Facebook's hardest content moderation questions and provide policy guidance. And Facebook was not alone in wanting to tackle the problem. There was a rush in academia and civil society to study and fight disinformation.
There was sort of this sweeping notion that mis and disinformation was affecting all of society. It was a whole of society problem. Everything from electoral politics to climate change and the economy.
Around that time, Joan Donovan was an academic studying the effects of misinformation and disinformation on online platforms.
That moment felt right. And I think a big part of the promise had a lot to do with the younger folks within these tech companies that did see these same problems and wanted to work on them. I made friends with a bunch of folks that worked at Spotify, where they later made the decision to ban hate music on their platforms. For the first time, I think I myself felt like, oh, this work is going to be important, that some solutions were in reach. I also got the feeling that if we were to really go deeper and really be more effective, that the platform companies themselves would likely turn on the field. And that prediction, unfortunately, became true.
Donovan was recruited by Harvard University to head up disinformation research at its Shorenstein Center on Media, Politics, and Public Policy. She was publishing important studies and trying to affect change. But even as Zuckerberg bowed before Congress and the tech companies seemed eager to tackle the problem, she saw warning signs.
When you were holding a conference or a panel, there would be a few people from each platform, maybe one or two, that would come. And I'll never forget going to a conference at Berkeley where a woman had literally been at Facebook 6 days. I met a representative of Twitter, and she had only been there 3 months, and she didn't really know much about how the product worked. I felt like the platform companies were placating academia and civil society without actually being truly invested in learning. Google would have researchers come in for a misinformation conference, and it would be fancy dinners in the garden. Everybody got caramels. It was really overdone. Many people, in order to attend events like that, had to reveal research they had been working on. I felt that was a major conflict of interest.
While the big tech companies at first appeared to be working with academia to solve the problems on their platforms, Donovan was suspicious of their real motives.
There were attempts to buddy up to me, particularly by Facebook. I'm kind of known in the field for being a big bitch. I did not want to partner with or give access to tech companies any of my research.
As she continued with her research, Donovan realized why the big tech companies were more interested in PR damage control than actually fixing their product.
These platforms are not designed in any way for anything other than the processing of advertising dollars and the amplification of whatever information is popular. Disinformation is actually the feature of the platforms.
Toward the end of the 2010s, Facebook in particular was under extreme public pressure to right the ship. In January of 2018, just before that Senate hearing, Facebook tweaked its algorithm to focus people's feeds more on what Mark Zuckerberg called, quote, meaningful social interactions. Posts from friends and family would be prioritized over publishers and businesses. And on the surface, that sounded good. Less fake news, more real conversations with friends. But that change would have unintended consequences. Verified news from trusted sources was far less likely to land in people's feeds. Newsrooms built on hefty doses of Facebook traffic would find the spigot suddenly turned off, and that would mean a major drop in revenue. Some outlets would be forced to lay people off. Others would shutter completely. And while legitimate media was losing its influence, Facebook's algorithm began to prioritize pages and posts that generated conversation between users, a move that would once again drive traffic to controversial content.
White supremacists are American citizens. Illegal immigrants are people who shouldn't be here.
Influencers who could incite their followers to anger and fear would have more reach than ever.
We have a moral obligation to admit the world's poor, they tell us, even if it makes our own country poorer and dirtier and more divided.
The timing of all these factors was unfortunate, because in 2020, the world was about to get a lot more angry and scary.
China has more than 200 confirmed cases of coronavirus, it's called.
The number of infected exploded over the weekend.
The pandemic would unleash a fire hose of hoaxes, scams, conspiracies, and misinformation that would rip through the population like a virus.
No more masks! I'll tell you another reason I hate masks. Most child molesters love them.
The meager defenses social media companies had put in place would be no match for this wave of poisonous content. In just one tumultuous year, American democracy would be left hanging by a thread. I'm Garrett Graff, and this is Long Shadow, Breaking the Internet. Episode 6, Going Viral.
There's an old Chinese tale. This boy wants to learn how to speak to animals. And one day, this wizard makes him a deal. I'll let you be able to speak to animals in the forest with the one condition that you can never speak to your family and your village again, lest you turn to stone. So this boy took this deal. One day, the forest animals told him that a great flood was coming. Run for your life. And the boy, what should I do? Should I run for my life, or should I warn my family and my villagers about this? So he finally shouted it out, warned them, but with the price of him turning to stone.
In January of 2020, Dr. Eric Feigl Deng, an American epidemiologist, was scrolling Chinese social media.
I was originally born in China, so I actually have my ear on the ground there. My spidey senses went up, especially around the Wuhan news.
Chinese health authorities are still working to identify the virus behind a pneumonia outbreak in the central city of Wuhan.
On Chinese social media, it was a very hot topic. There was a lot of bad stories coming out of people dying on the streets. People suffering horrible ailments, and young people dying. That's not normal.
Rumors on social media alleged that the outbreak in Wuhan could be linked to SARS.
Authorities say it is untrue and 8 people were detained for spreading fake news online.
If you know anything about Chinese social media, you know that once the government takes a position on something, it's completely just deleted from social media. But this was just an ongoing thing, which meant the government has not figured it out.
Videos on social media showing quarantine squads, people being taken away.
You realize, holy shit, this is real.
At that time, in early January, COVID-19 wasn't even called that yet. It was just a novel coronavirus making its way through parts of Asia. And Feigl Deng felt like he was one of the few people who could see what was coming.
I realized this is something which Westerners, Americans, absolutely would not take seriously until someone screamed it from the rooftops.
Feigl Deng knew what could happen if you were the bearer of bad news on social media. You might not get turned to stone, but it could be bad. He knew he had to speak up. And he also knew how to get attention on the internet.
I knew that I had to yell it in a way that is edgier in order to warn people. Holy Mother of God, this is a thermonuclear level pandemic the world has not seen in over 100 years.
It was a message tailor-made for modern social media, equal parts alarm and hyperbole, dripping with existential dread. And like COVID-19 itself, the message was going viral.
It blows up very quickly. People were really sharing it with their friends and family. I heard people from basically every continent.
Feigl Ding's Twitter thread, which mainly discussed the findings of a pre-publication paper on COVID's sky-high reproduction number, would introduce a lot of people to the threat posed by the coronavirus.
And of course, with any attention comes criticisms of, oh, he's fear-mongering. You're scaring people. This is overblown.
Among the many critics were scientists and journalists who noted the paper Feigl Ding cited was pre-publication, and that as a nutritional epidemiologist, he wasn't qualified to talk about infectious diseases. To them, he was a rogue scientist stepping out of his academic lane and using non-peer-reviewed evidence to drive panic.
They joked, my name is Eric Feigl Doom.
But Feigl Ding's alarm quickly proved to be more right than wrong. That same day in Washington state, America got its first confirmed case of COVID-19.
The man entering the country before federal health officials began screening travelers from the city of Wuhan.
Feigl Ding kept tracking the virus and posting updates as his following on Twitter quickly grew to over 100,000. Within a week, he was invited to be a guest expert on the major news networks.
Dr. Eric Ding is an epidemiologist at the Harvard Chan School of Public Health. He joins us now.
The WHO didn't even declare the public health emergency international concern yet. I was hammering on all the news networks, we need to declare a public health pandemic.
I think WHO absolutely should declare emergency. It's high time.
I was actually in the studio with Wolf Blitzer when the first death in Washington state came in.
The fact that we have a death so quickly identified means this is just the tip of the iceberg.
I was trying to say, look, where there's one death, there will be a lot more. And then, of course, Italy exploded.
Nearly 200 people there have died in just the last 24 hours.
If Italy is anything to go by, the United States better buckle up.
For a lot of people in America, unless it's in your neighborhood, it doesn't count. Out of sight, out of mind.
But the virus was already spreading in America. By the middle of March, New York City's case rate was exploding.
City hospitals, their resources are strained. Doctors and nurses are inundated.
It was just apocalyptic levels.
Within weeks, the city was running out of room to store the bodies.
A refrigerated truck has now been brought in here, a makeshift morgue.
By the end of March, more than 4,000 Americans had died of COVID-19, and hundreds more were dying every day. Feigl Ding wasn't right about everything. Some of his posts contained mistakes and inaccuracies. That made what he was doing controversial. But he was erring on the side of warning people quickly.
I was leaning in that this is not just going to be a brief thing. This is going to keep going until we protect people.
President Trump had been telling Americans the virus would simply disappear on its own as the weather got warmer. But with hospitals filling up and deaths mounting, he called for 30 days of social distancing.
Our future is in our own hands, and the choices and sacrifices we make will determine the fate of this virus and really the fate of our victory. We will have a great victory.
America was effectively on lockdown. Stay-at-home orders upended public life. Millions of people suddenly found themselves unable to work, unable to leave their homes, unable to socialize or see their loved ones. As cases exploded and deaths grew exponentially, fear set in, and people took to the internet, desperate for guidance on how to avoid, prevent, and treat COVID-19.
Everything moved so fast. It was an information fire hose coming at everyone. Old ideas were being dispelled. New ideas were quickly created of what we should do.
Scientific arguments over the best course of action were playing out on social media in front of the whole world.
There's virologists who are sniping at doctors, doctors sniping at epidemiologists, epidemiologists sniping at others. We were having a fight in public. There's so much confusion among CDC and WHO, they don't even agree what to do. That's when all this other opportunistic junk starts coming in.
This influenza circling the globe, you're saying that silver solution would be effective.
People peddling supplements that will prevent and cure COVID on social media.
The patented nanosilver we have, this stuff kills the whole SARS corona family at point blank range.
It was very viral because we had no idea how to treat this thing. People were desperate. People are so thirsty for leadership. They will crawl towards a mirage. And when they don't find water, they will drink the sand.
People were being introduced to a lot of content that they felt they had real stakes in knowing.
During those first few months of the pandemic, Joan Donovan was trying to wrap her head around the massive amount of misinformation being spread on social media. There were theories that snorting cocaine would cure the virus. In India, people drank cow urine. In Iran, a rumor that drinking pure alcohol would kill the virus led to 5,800 hospitalizations and more than 800 deaths. As these quack cures spread, so did the conspiracy theories that underpinned them. There was a growing theory that COVID-19 was being used to depopulate the Earth.
It's a bioweapon and not from nature, which, by the way, is contradicting what the CDC is telling us.
And a lot of fake cures were spreading with the conspiratorial idea that the government didn't want people to know about them. Followers of the QAnon conspiracy theory put out the idea that drinking bleach would cure COVID. A lot of unfortunate people believed that one.
The Poison Center is again warning you drinking bleach will not prevent catching COVID-19. The Poison Center says 46 North Texans drank bleach.
The online information environment was creating a dangerous situation where the very people who were likely to try these fake cures were the least likely to trust the official health guidance against them. And at the same time, some of the suggested cures from government officials were pretty out there.
Supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light.
In one wild press conference, President Trump suggested that hitting the body with dangerous UV light might work, or failing that,
disinfectant. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning?
Whether it came from the bowels of the internet or the Oval Office, mis and disinformation were running wild on social media, and people were dying from it.
The pandemic became this moment for platform companies to step up and do something good in the world. Some of the interventions that the tech companies did at that time, especially to ensure that posts from the CDC and the WHO showed up in people's news feeds, I do think that that was important.
Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube focused on demonetizing and deplatforming the growing number of users spreading medical misinformation and scams.
If not for demonetizing at least this kind of viral medical misinformation, I do think a lot more people would have been hurt and possibly died.
But in the end, the platforms were overwhelmed by the persistence of bad actors.
It was like a merry-go-round. They get banned one night and they'd be on 2 nights later under a new name. Catching these actors was a game of whack-a-mole.
There's an old saying that a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth can get its boots on. During COVID, we learned that a lie travels even faster on the internet.
What makes fake news viral? It was novel and outrageous. If we think about the kind of content that is both novel and outrageous, it's Alex Jones.
COVID-19, the way the scientists describe it is it basically eats your testicles and sterilizes you. The virus is designed to eat your testicles.
It's that conspiracy, it's that novelty and outrageousness that is what keeps these things alive.
As the COVID lockdowns persisted into April of 2020, social media filled with conspiracy theories about government control. People all over America were becoming restless. Distrust of mainstream media was higher than it had been in years. Some people were starting to turn to alternative sources for their information.
I was on Facebook. That's most of my media at that time. And I saw this man, he was on a video talking about the government overreaching.
Pam Hemphill was a recently retired substance abuse counselor living in Boise, Idaho. And the man she saw talking on Facebook?
That was Ammon Bundy.
The government does not have the right to do what they're doing. They do not have a right to restrict you from going to church.
Well, I didn't know much about him. I heard something about him getting in trouble with the FBI or something.
That was putting it lightly. Listeners of Season 2 of Long Shadow, Rise of the American Far Right, might remember that Ammon Bundy was involved in 2 spectacular standoffs with the U.S. government. One tense, heavily armed showdown with the Bureau of Land Management on his father's cattle ranch in Nevada in 2014.
We're going to kick the BLM out of the state, kick all the other federal agencies out of the state that aren't authorized to be here.
And a standoff in 2016 at a wildlife refuge in Oregon, where Bundy and his followers took over and occupied a government building.
Now, this refuge here is rightfully owned by the people.
That one ended in violence, when one of Bundy's associates was shot and killed by law enforcement officers during a traffic stop. By 2020, Bundy was living in Idaho. He'd built a significant following preaching about government overreach. And now he'd set his sights on the COVID lockdowns, in a movement he was calling People's Rights.
I went there to his first meeting.
You know, very dangerous.
Hello, this is Pam Hemphill. I'm down here with Bundy.
Hemphill, then a 67-year-old grandma, had developed a small following of her own on Facebook, mostly from going live at local right-wing political events.
In Boise, Idaho, all the channels here are more left. So they were enjoying seeing things that the news would not talk about. And I was the news.
It is very serious when the people are willing to physically defend themselves while they exercise their rights.
I thought, this is interesting. I can learn from this man. He's telling me that the government is overreaching. They have no right to make you wear a mask. And I said, nobody's going to make me wear one.
The people, yes, the people will not.
Hemphill started following Bundy all around town, streaming live for her followers as he confronted officials and challenged COVID restrictions.
The people will not allow you guys to do this for very long. You will not go.
And Hemphill became one of those people you would see videos of on social media, filming herself flouting mask policies.
This is Pam Hemphill. I don't know what store I'm in, but they said I could not come in here, and I have a...
I'm telling you, you need to get out. You don't have a mask. There's 2 signs on our door that says...
Open up now. We cannot allow you to do this and ruin our economy in Boise so they can get Trump out of office. It ain't gonna...
Hemphill and Bundy were part of a wave of discontent spreading across the country. There was a growing sense online that the lockdowns and mask mandates were not necessary health measures at all, but the trappings of government tyranny.
What can't politicians do in the name of public health? Could they intern people? What's next?
The major tech platforms had committed to fight the spread of pandemic-related misinformation. Fact-checkers and researchers were working to remove false claims or mark them as misleading. But they were losing the fight.
Maybe there's only 40 coronavirus patients at these hospitals and they're hiding them well.
This whole thing is concocted by the mainstream media, the fake news, to try to bring down doctors.
Oxford's Reuters Institute studied hundreds of false claims identified by fact-checkers in the first months of the pandemic. More than half of the false posts remained on Twitter. About a quarter were still on YouTube and Facebook. Misinformation was still flying around the internet, reaching millions at lightning speed.
We got a serious situation here. This is biological warfare launched against us by the Chinese.
It's a false flag event to then mandate mandatory vaccines.
The truth is that content moderation was a poor band-aid for the business models of companies like Facebook. Facebook was built for amplification and advertising, and no amount of downstream fact-checking would fix that. Earlier in 2020, Facebook's algorithm had decided that 78 million users were interested in the category of pseudoscience. It would automatically feed those users ads for things like a helmet purported to block cell phone radiation, a literal tinfoil hat. The algorithm would also recommend groups for people to join based on the things they clicked and commented on. And you can imagine the kind of content that millions of people were commenting on in April of 2020.
The average American is seeing this saying, what the hell is going on?
We call it the deep state, but whatever it is.
They want to do everything they possibly can to crash the stock market.
Trying to undermine Donald Trump in the 2016.
People that don't get the vaccines, they're going to basically be considered as dissidents. People like you will be shot in the head or will be quarantined in some kind of a concentration camp.
That month, more than 100 state-specific groups were created on Facebook to protest stay-at-home orders. By mid-April, these groups had attracted more than 900,000 members, becoming fertile echo chambers for conspiracy theories and COVID misinformation. The groups organized at least 49 real-world events where people would violate state orders and gathered to protest the lockdowns. Influencers pushed these events all over the internet, spurring their followers to join.
If somebody just kills your whole family, destroys your way of life, you just sit there and piss on an old puddle and go,
It didn't help when arguably the biggest social media influencer and the leading distributor of COVID misinformation, President Trump himself, sent out a series of tweets telling states to, quote, liberate themselves from the stay-at-home measures he had recommended just weeks before.
It's time for citizens to stand up and take our country back, just like President Trump promised.
The same online infrastructure that had helped to liberate Egypt almost a decade before was now being used to gather anti-government mobs in the streets of America at the peak of a pandemic. There were events at state capitals all across the country, like Boise, Idaho.
See, I actually went out there because I was bored and found a little community.
Pam Hemphill was live streaming the anti-lockdown events at the Boise Capitol with Ammon Bundy.
That when you have faced so much tyranny in your life, there is a point where you would rather line up naked and get shot in the head. And my friends, why we're here today right now is to make sure that never happens.
They're all talking about this virus. It was a weapon to kill Americans, and Democrats are behind it. It scares you because you love this country and you don't want to see any of this happening.
If you don't protect and defend your freedom, I guarantee you it will be taken.
When you're with this group and they're fighting against communists, you feel like you're saving the country.
No more tyranny! No more tyranny!
Conspiracy theories that had spread online were on full display at rallies throughout April.
Dr. Fauci, you know how many sick connections he has to sick people? Billionaires and people who are eugenicists?
All of it came to a head in spectacular fashion on April 30th in Michigan, when a mob of anti-lockdown protesters pushed their way into the Capitol building, screaming to be let into the state Senate chamber. Among them were QAnon believers and heavily armed men in Hawaiian shirts, adherents of the online Boogaloo conspiracy, who were preparing for a coming civil war.
Taking my liberty away from holding my...
It's nearly 4 months later, August 24th, 2020, in the halls of the Idaho State House in Boise. Ammon Bundy and his People's Rights Movement are attempting to get into a special legislative session. Pam Hemphill is streaming live to Facebook.
There he is.
Can I get a hug?
Get me in there.
Rhetoric around the coronavirus has been escalating all summer. Around 170,000 Americans have died from it. But Bundy and his followers are here to demand an end to the state's state of emergency.
They were already so angry, losing their jobs, refusing to wear masks, take the vaccine. They're fighting everything and everybody. That was it. They were done.
The crowd starts to push against the police officers trying to guard the door, and then they break through the door itself. The protesters, some of them armed, pushed their way into the gallery in the Senate chamber. It was one of many protests that summer that threatened to turn violent.
That period was, in particular, a very hot summer for activism.
Between moderating disinformation on social media and keeping an eye on extremist groups, Joan Donovan was having a busy summer. Millions had taken to the streets across the country after the police murder of George Floyd, sparking counter-protests and clashes with right-wing groups. As the 2020 presidential election loomed, it was starting to feel like an existential moment for people on both sides of the political divide, and strange bedfellows were coming together on the internet.
You had anti-vaccine activists hanging out with the gun rights crowd, who were then getting introduced to these MAGA patriots that believed themselves to be Trump's private army.
The Trump administration's response to the coronavirus had been dismal. There was political unrest in many major cities. The election had started to feel like an existential moment for Trump as well.
Just make sure your vote gets counted. Make sure, because the only way we're going to lose this election is if the election is rigged. Remember that.
So over the summer of 2020, Trump is pushing this idea that it's going to be the mail-in ballots. It's going to be rigged. There's no way out.
The only way they're going to win is that way, and we can't let that happen.
Social media had proven to be an ideal way to organize around conspiracies. The same people who believed that COVID was a hoax, that the coming vaccine was poison, and that the CDC was trying to depopulate the earth had little trust in the system left by the time the election rolled around.
That was really a bizarre coalition of people that had a major political awakening during COVID, groups of people online that are ready to go to that next level, whatever it is, that do not mind using violent means to achieve political ends.
Because of the number of mail-in ballots, the counting of votes continued well after Election Day. Votes that were expected to favor Democratic candidate Joe Biden. 2 days after the election, with votes still being tallied, Trump tweeted in all caps, "Stop the count."
Stop the count! Stop the count!
Crowds of Trump supporters showed up at places where the counts were happening, yelling and banging on the windows to intimidate election workers.
We want Trump! We want Trump! Cheating elections is no freedom!
But ultimately, the counts were finished and Biden was declared the winner. Still, Trump did not concede, and his public remarks suggested he might not leave the White House quietly.
Whatever happens in the future, who knows which administration it will be? I guess time will tell.
While Trump began a series of court battles over election results, a group formed on Facebook called Stop the Steal. Its description said that Democrats are scheming to disenfranchise and nullify Republican votes. 350,000 users joined the group in a single day, prompting Facebook to take action and shut the group down. More Stop the Steal groups quickly popped up and migrated to right-wing platforms like Parler, where they could escape Facebook's moderation. As Trump's own Justice Department failed to find any evidence of widespread election fraud, and the Trump campaign lost court case after court case, dozens in all, the Stop the Steal movement grew to millions online. And in November and December, big crowds were showing up to real-world events across the country.
You started to see the more militant folks of MAGA begin to talk about this as a war of liberty.
So as dark as some of these days are, understand this is the beginning of the great revival before the Antichrist comes.
At these Stop the Steal rallies, the same online influencers who had been driving misinformation and conspiracy theories all year inflamed the crowds, this time in person.
YouTubers, live streamers, pundits, figures like Ali Alexander and Alex Jones.
World government, implantable microchips, Satanism, it's out of the open.
They're there to really amp up the crowds.
Joe Biden is a globalist, and Joe Biden will be removed one way or another.
The message was clear. This was a war, and some people were taking that message literally. At a Stop the Steal rally in Washington, D.C. in mid-December, there were violent street clashes between the far-right group the Proud Boys and counter-protesters. Trump's legal effort to overturn election results was a failure. The vote certification date was setting up to be the last stand, the final battle. Trump supporters from all over the country were connecting online, sharing itineraries, and making plans to travel to D.C. Influencers from Alex Jones to little old ladies from Boise, Idaho, were urging their followers to do the same.
Hi, this is Pam Hemphill. I have a YouTube channel. You got to watch it. We know that it's been a steal. It's not over yet, and we're here to support President Trump and let people know.
Late at night, Trump himself sent a tweet out to his followers. Big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Be there. Will be wild.
I got diagnosed with breast cancer, and I had surgery, and my brother had called me and said, hey, you love going out there videotaping. How would you like a Christmas gift where we send you to January 6th so you can videotape Trump? And I thought, oh, yeah, that'd be great. You know, this is what I've been dreaming of, is be able to go to one of his rallies. That's how I ended up going there.
Pam Hemphill.
Hemphill got to D.C. on the night of January 5th and streamed the scene on the street to Facebook Live.
I was pretty excited. I got there kind of late. It just seemed like everybody was angry. No smiles. You try to smile at people. Weren't friendly like I thought it would be.
The next morning, Trump gave his infamous speech at the Ellipse, where he asked the giant crowd to go down to the Capitol.
And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
I missed hearing Trump, so I walked around thinking maybe they're going to have another event. And they said, no, he's going up to the Capitol. He said in his speech, I'll meet you down there. And I thought, well, maybe he's going to be meeting with Congress. I want to be there. On my way up there, right in front of the Capitol, I turned around and here came a huge group of men.
Pam Hemphill, down here at the Capitol.
The men were the Proud Boys, some of whom would eventually be convicted of seditious conspiracy for what was about to unfold.
And I went up to him and I said, are we going inside the Capitol?
Are we going inside? I want to go inside.
No, we're not going inside.
Well, shit, I did in Boise.
They said, no, ma'am, we're not going inside the Capitol. I thought I better get up there because if the Proud Boys are coming, I want to be right up front with them because they're going to be with Trump, and that would be great on video.
That was how Hemphill, a 67-year-old grandmother, found herself at the front of an angry crowd, pushed up against a barricade in front of the U.S. Capitol building.
I'm right on the front gate.
Shameless.
I don't want to paint myself as some person that was innocent on January 6th, because I sure wasn't. I had the mindset.
If it goes bad, they're going to push the fences down.
Oh my God, I'd lost my mind. So embarrassed to even share it, but I was mega, thinking that I'm standing up against communism. They started pushing the barrier. An officer grabs me and pulls me over. I'm thinking because the officer pulled me over that they're letting us in. And I went around and said,
You just got to come in, that's all. It's no big deal.
This is our house. And I said, just push.
Just get in here. It's your house.
I was just there, I don't even know, a half a minute. And a whole bunch of other men started doing it again. They pushed the barriers.
Oh, shit.
The officers were doing nothing but their duty to stand there and guard that area. It was the crowd that pushed the barriers, pushed the officers. They pushed me down. I fell on my head. They stepped on my head. They cut my knee. And it was the Capitol police officers that pulled me up. They saved my life. And then I stood there behind the officers trying to get my breath. They did it again. The crowd pushed the officers, got up to the top of the steps by the door, and started using sticks and pepper spraying the officers.
Hemphill was shaken and a little in shock over what was happening, but she quickly recovered and made her way to the top of the stairs to join the mob.
Well, I'm up here in the Capitol. I was the first one. I don't know if I'm going to be on the news or not. But
I wanted to go in and videotape and see what was going on.
Yeah, it's beautiful. There's all these like fancy paintings and sculptures. Go in. It's fucking great.
Hemphill found herself walking around the Capitol Rotunda.
Look at this. Oh my God.
The history, it's like it hits you. Those big pictures.
I don't know how I got in.
Everybody walking around, kind of in awe. They were happy to be in there, but I was scared. I just sat.
After a while, Hemphill was approached by a Capitol police officer.
Joe, I got his first name. He came to me and said, "You okay?" I said, "No, I'm not. I need your help to get out."
I'll go with you.
You help me?
Yes.
And so he helped me get out.
I love this guy. Really?
Hemphill landed back outside at the top of the Capitol steps, where she noticed a guy in a buffalo hat and war paint, carrying an American flag like a spear. His picture would be on the front pages of a lot of the next day's newspapers. It was Jacob Chansley, also known as the QAnon Shaman.
I have to go up there and videotape him, and he's talking all this garbage.
Nothing can stop what is coming. Nothing!
And then that's when Trump came on.
I know how you feel, but go home and go home in peace.
That looks pre-recorded! Man, did he record?
In one especially tumultuous year, America had been driven insane, and the internet had played a major role. At the Capitol that day, the conspiracy theories that had been spreading unfettered were on full display.
Fucking China's gonna take us over! You fucking guys like China?
BLM are committing hate crime.
We fucking get through that fucking door!
This was the closest America had ever come to a coup. Hemphill surveyed the scene. Those still hanging around seemed to be the drunkest and most far gone. She started urging them to give it up.
You did your part. You don't have to do this anymore.
Charge!
No.
One guy came at me and pushed me up against the door. They were getting a little crazy with me.
Don't you do that to me. Back off. Back off. We're done. Get out of here.
I would like to begin by addressing the heinous attack on the United States Capitol. Like all Americans, I am outraged by the violence, lawlessness, and mayhem.
The next day, Donald Trump finally conceded the 2020 election. In a speech, he put distance between himself and the supporters who had stormed the Capitol in his name.
The demonstrators who infiltrated the Capitol have defiled the seat of American democracy. To those who engaged in the acts of violence and destruction, you do not represent our country. And to those who broke the law, you will pay.
That same day, Facebook suspended Trump from its platforms indefinitely. A day later, Twitter followed suit. And with that, a new period of reckoning in the tech world seemed to be beginning. All the major tech platforms, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube, had played a role in spreading the misinformation and conspiracy theories that led to the insurrection on January 6th. It hadn't even been 3 years since Mark Zuckerberg sat in front of the Senate and promised that Facebook would do better. The platform had once again been used to attack a U.S. election, and so much more. In the wake of January 6th, there was a sweeping investigation. A congressional committee reviewed more than 40,000 hours of security footage of the Capitol riot. In hearings, it delved into some of the motivations of the thousands of people involved in the attack that day.
Mr. Ayers, why did you decide to come to Washington on January 6th?
I was pretty hardcore into the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I followed, President Trump. He basically put out, come to Stop the Steal rally, and I felt like I needed to be down here.
Did you believe that the election had been stolen?
At that time, yeah. Everything that I was seeing online, I definitely believed that was the case.
The final report from the January 6th committee stated social media played a prominent role in amplifying erroneous claims of election fraud. But according to an investigation by the Washington Post, committee leaders chose not to publish some of their most scathing findings, fearing a public battle with big tech companies. The Post's report referenced a leaked 122-page memo that had circulated within the committee about the role of social media in the attack. It said that Twitter and Facebook hesitated to enforce their policies against the violent rhetoric posted by Trump and other right-wing commentators on their platforms. That Facebook didn't do enough to curb the surge of disinformation and misinformation around the election outcome. And that, quote, alt-tech, fringe, and mainstream platforms were exploited in tandem by right-wing activists to bring American democracy to the brink of ruin. But none of those revelations made it into the committee's official report on January 6th. The same social media that had drawn thousands to the Capitol was used by investigators to identify and ultimately charge more than 1,500 people with crimes related to the attack.
Hey, brother, we're boots on the ground here. We're moving on to Capitol now.
Many had posted pictures of themselves at the Capitol online. Or, like Pam Hemphill, had streamed the attack live on Facebook. Pam Hemphill was ultimately charged with unlawful parading, a misdemeanor. She pleaded guilty.
I was wrong because those officers were just doing their duty, not harming anybody.
Hemphill would serve 60 days in prison. Since then, she's had a lot of time to reflect on everything that happened. She no longer believes that communist Democrats are trying to destroy America, or that COVID was a bioweapon, or really many of the things she was taught in 2020.
That was part of my problem. I had no critical thinking. I just trusted you because I trusted you. And this is the typical problem that we're having in America, is they're just trusting everything they're hearing. As you know, we have a war going on with disinformation, that's for sure.
Hemphill would ultimately reject President Trump's pardon of the January 6th offenders.
I broke the law. Yes. Why should I be pardoned? I deserved it. And I got to be a part of Trump's narrative. No way.
Before the pandemic, we'd seen social media platforms upend countries overseas, but no one thought it could happen here. The noxious poison of hate and extremism had migrated one like, comment, and follow at a time from the fringe to the mainstream. Deplatforming people like Alex Jones and Donald Trump worked, for a while. Without them tweeting and posting, it seemed like the political temperature got turned down. But the rhetoric didn't disappear. It only went underground. And in 4 short years, it would rear its head again and plunge America into a fresh, new constitutional crisis.
A lineup of billionaire tech titans led by the world's richest man, Elon Musk.
We are watching the collapse of the international order in real time.
That's on the next and final episode of Long Shadow: Breaking the Internet. Long Shadow is a production of Longlead, distributed by PRX. The show is produced and co-written by Ryan Swikert. John Patrick Pullen is our story editor and executive producer. Emily Barone is Longlead's managing editor. Kevin Shepard and Ula Kulpa served as associate producers. Additional editorial support by Ula Kulpa. Audience development by Jensen Rubenstein. Fact-checking by Will DeGravio. Claire Mullen did the mix. Sound design by Claire Mullen and Ryan Swikert. John Singh handles publicity for Longlead. The Podglomerate provides publicity, marketing, and promotional support for the show. Music by Epidemic Sound, Marmoset, and Blue Dot Sessions. Cover art by Longlead's creative director, Sarah Rogers. Learn more about Longlead and subscribe to our newsletter at longlead.com. Episode transcripts and more are available at longshadowpodcast.com. If you're enjoying the show, spread the word and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps others find the show. I'm Garrett Graff, and thanks for listening.